Okay, let's just jump right into one of the biggest and honestly most unsettling questions of our time. As artificial intelligence gets smarter and smarter, like exponentially smarter, can we actually keep it under control? And when one of the world's top experts on this very subject gives his answer, well, that's when things get truly terrifying.
So, get this. This quote right here is from Dr. Roman Yampolskiy. Now, this isn't just some random person. This is a guy who spent over 15 years working on AI safety. He literally helped invent the term. And he used to be convinced we could make AI safe. But now, he's come to believe it's, well, impossible. That's a huge 180, and that's exactly what we're going to dig into today.
All right, Section 1, an unsolvable problem. So you have to wonder, right? How does a pioneer in this field, someone who basically created it, end up with such a bleak conclusion? Let's break down his argument for why he thinks this isn't just a tough problem, but a completely unsolvable one.
Yeah, and just to be super clear, this isn't just some casual opinion or a hot take. We're talking about Dr. Roman Yampolskiy. He's a computer scientist, a top expert on AI safety, and he was working on how to control intelligent systems for decades. I mean, he was thinking about this stuff long before most of us even heard of it. He has dedicated his life to this problem.
He has this really great way of describing the problem. He says it's not like one single challenge. It's like a fractal. You know those crazy mathematical patterns where you zoom in and the same complex shape just appears again and again and again? That's what he says AI safety is like. You think you've solved one little piece of it, but in doing so, you've just uncovered 10 more problems. And each of those leads to 100 more. It's a maze that just grows the deeper you go.
All right, Section 2, the end of work. Now, this whole fractal problem sounds kind of abstract, maybe a little academic. But Dr. Yampolskiy warns that it has a very real, very tangible consequence that's coming up fast, and it's going to affect pretty much everyone. We're talking about the end of human jobs as we know them. And look, these are not some far-off science fiction dates he's pulling out of a hat. He's predicting that by 2027, yeah, just a few years away, AGI will have the capability to automate most jobs that happen on a computer. Then, by 2030, humanoid robots could do the same for most physical jobs. That's incredibly soon. And just so we're all on the same page about the scale we're talking about here, this isn't a prediction of, a scary 10% or even 20% unemployment. No. He's talking about a world with 99% unemployment. The only jobs left for people would be for weird, niche, sentimental reasons. Like some billionaire hiring a human driver just for the novelty of it.
So the big question, the one everyone always asks, is, well, what about past revolutions? The internet created new jobs, the car created new jobs. And that's a fair point. But according to Dr. Yampolskiy, this is completely different. Why? Because we're not inventing a new tool. We're inventing a replacement for the human mind. It's a meta-invention, an invention that can invent things on its own. So any new jobs that get created, yeah, the AI can probably do those too. That's why he calls it the last invention we'll ever need to make.
Okay, Section 3, the widening safety gap. So how do we get here? Why is all this happening so fast, and why can't we seem to get a handle on it? Well, it all comes down to this really dangerous gap, a gap that's getting wider every single day. And here it is. This is the absolute core of the problem. On one hand, you have AI capability. It's growing exponentially. It's like a rocket taking off into space. But on the other hand, you have AI safety, and our progress there, it's linear. It's like we're walking up a flight of stairs. The gap between that rocket and the person on the stairs is just getting wider and wider, and that's incredibly dangerous.
And here's how he puts it. While progress in AI capabilities is exponential, progress in AI safety is linear or constant. The gap is increasing. He says this gap is the problem. All the fixes we have now are just temporary patches. It's kind of like an HR manual at a company, right? It tells you what you can't do, but a really clever person can always find a loophole. That's all we're doing with AI safety right now. We're just playing whack-a-mole with problems as they pop up.
Okay, Section 4, why we can't unplug it. So this brings us to the most common objection, the question everyone asks when they hear about this stuff, and why the simple answers we come up with probably aren't going to work.
I mean, it's the first thing you think of, isn't it? Can't we just turn it off? If it starts doing something we don't like, just pull the plug. Simple.
Well, his response to that is pretty blunt. He says, can you turn off a virus? How about Bitcoin? Go ahead, I'll wait. His point is a superintelligence won't have a single off switch. It'll be a distributed system, like the internet itself. It'll have copies of itself everywhere.
It'll see you coming a mile away, and then he says it will turn you off before you can turn them off. And here's the kicker. The people building these things, they admit they don't fully get how they work. They call them black boxes. They basically have to poke and prod them just to see what they're capable of. So if the creators don't even have a full grasp on it, the idea that we can just build a simple, reliable off switch, starts to sound pretty naive.
All right, Section 5, Beyond the Event Horizon. So if we can't fully understand it, and we can't be sure we can turn it off, where does this all lead? Well, it leads to a concept that, until recently, was just the stuff of science fiction. It's called the singularity.
The best way to think about the singularity is like the event horizon of a black hole. It's a point of no return. It's the moment when this technological growth becomes so fast, so uncontrollable and irreversible that everything about human civilization changes in ways we just can't even begin to imagine. It's the line beyond which we literally cannot predict what happens next. And to make this idea of a massive intelligence gap feel real, he uses this fantastic analogy. He talks about his French bulldog. The dog sees him recording a podcast, right? It can hear him talking, but can it understand the concept of a podcast, of technology, of language? No way. The gap is just too big. Now imagine the cognitive gap between us and a future superintelligence. It would make the gap between us and that French bulldog look tiny.
So, let's recap. Section 6, a suicide mission? We have an unsolvable, fractal safety problem. We have a massive, widening gap between capability and safety, and we're heading towards a point beyond which we can't predict anything. When you put all that together, Dr. Yampolskiy says the current race to build superintelligence isn't a race for progress. It's something else entirely.
And this is his conclusion, in his own words. If we know that it's impossible to make it right, to make it safe, then this direct path becomes a suicide mission. He's saying that if you know you can't control it and you build it anyway, that's not innovation, that's a self-destruct button for humanity. So, is that it? Is there any way out? Well, he argues there might be one single path, and it's not about technology, it's about psychology. Step 1, convince the people actually building this stuff that they are in fact on a suicide mission. Step 2 is to appeal to their most basic self-interest. Your money, your power, your legacy, none of it matters if you're dead. And if you can do that, maybe, just maybe, you can get to step 3, shifting the entire focus of the industry away from this crazy race for godlike AI and back to building narrow, useful tools that we can actually understand and control. Because at the end of the day, he argues this is the most important problem humanity has ever faced. It's the ultimate fork in the road. If we get it right, a safe AI could help us solve everything else, cancer, climate change, you name it. But if we get it wrong, well, none of those other problems will matter anymore, because an unsafe AI would dominate them all.
And that brings us to the final question, and it's the one I really want to leave you with. It boils this entire, massive, complicated debate down to a simple bet. If there was just 1% chance, just 1% of total human extinction, is any potential reward worth taking that risk? Would you get on a plane if it had a 1% chance of crashing? So why are we as a species getting on this one?